Good evening. I'm doing something I haven't done for a while. I'm reading the Constitution of another nation. It's a much newer Constitution than the one from the United States. I haven't finished it. As I read the Constitution, I understand that it's not appropriate to continue reading into the final sections of the Constitution of this country because we are in a situation within my own country of constitutional crisis. And I'm grateful to the Republic of Belarus and the Constitution of the Republic of Belarus because reading it, even in translation into English, has given me a consideration of pertinent constitutional questions from within my own country, including insofar as they have been exposed today and need to be discussed regarding those manners. For the record, I've finished reviewing the Constitution of the Republic of Belarus in the middle of the Chapter 5 concerning the government, the Council of Ministers of the Republic of Belarus. I am not, at this time, able to finish this chapter, and I will not yet be moving on to reading or consideration of the rest of the Constitution, including Chapter 6 regarding the court system. So I'm going to shut that down I'm going to close that right now. But I'm acknowledging that after reading it, it has definitely bought into consideration and helped to hone some of the constitutional questions before us right now in the United States. If I'm correct, there is an English language representation on the website for the Central Bank of Russia about acknowledging a joint stock regulatory endeavor. My concern is that what has happened is that in connection with very long term obligations the United States had with the former Soviet Union, including denationalized enterprises associated with the former Soviet Union that were privatized, some of which not only were privatized, but were engaged in very long term financial arrangements and very comprehensive financial arrangements with American companies specific to the gas and oil sector, but not exclusive to the gas and oil sector. And that what has happened in the last 10 years has been a significant misrepresentation of those obligations, both by the countries of the former Soviet Union, but also by the United States. And so considerations of assets associated with the United States and the role that they have in any sort of long-term expectation concerning the joining of assets or the transfer of assets or the sharing and exchange of assets has been slandered. And in the course of that slander, it impacts the capacity for it to prosper. Who wants to maintain a junked venture that is repeatedly and consistently intentionally junked? This is the situation that I understand we have been experiencing directly within the United States for the last 5 years. Now, in the current state I'm in, I operate as if I am in multiple situses at different times. Because of my capacity for executive functioning, because of my capacity and experience with engaging in communal or collective leadership efforts, because of my experience as service, as well as my experience with other matters related to various other kinds of functions, including ones that could be involved with a state function or with ordinary political process. In my isolation and whatever this contextualization of my experience has been, I find it necessary to allow an appropriate expression of all the capacities to the best of the embodiment that's capable and relevant at that period of time. I could potentially, personally, individually, be qualified or in the process of maintaining what would be necessary to qualify for any number of roles, which also, I believe, helps to give me a perspective on how to assess what would render somebody else qualified for judgment. Do I meet my own standard? Insofar as that's the case, my attorney general just told me she's quitting. She's quitting because she cannot, in good faith, execute the duties of attorney general with an understanding that the misrepresentation of what she is supposed to do in her role, based upon a obstruction of her capacity to find an appropriate complementarity for execution of her duties has made it so that she cannot operate in those duties. It is a form of no confidence. It is no confidence in what is supposed to be the checks and balances against abuse of office, but also the structural supports for the appropriate execution of those official duties. I cannot compel her to retract her resignation. She has a legitimate reason for resigning, and I have to accept her resignation. I also have to say that it has exposed a very significant flaw in those other entities that were supposed to be supporting her. That includes executive agencies that were supposed to be assisting. That includes elements of the judiciary that were supposed to be providing support. That includes elements of law enforcement that were supposed to be providing what was necessary in order to appropriately gather and record evidence, including elements of the financial sector that were supposed to be involved with providing information necessary to assure that the appropriate processes had been engaged and that she had the security and the surety she needed to do her work safely. I agree with her. She was intentionally obstructed from having that provided to her, and it's impacted the people. It's impacted the people of the state of Texas. It's impacted the people of the United States of America, and it has had a direct and material impact on our capacity to support those that we would otherwise consider our allies and to protect and defend ourselves against any undue influence or attempted sabotage by our enemies. This is a very serious situation we're in. And as a result, I can't give up the ship, but I also cannot try to force somebody to do a job that has been put before them in an unsafe manner. See, it's different when you're the chief executive. It's different when you're the commander-in-chief. This is a very significant difference. Ultimately, it falls on your head. If there's nobody else, then you're all that's left. I can't force my attorney general to engage in and comply with overtly and intentionally unconstitutional acts in order to cover up for the very crime she's supposed to be shutting down and prosecuting. But I have different duties. And I'm very, very disappointed to understand that under these circumstances and in this context, I do not have her supporting me. And that says something very significant. I do not agree with this process of playing around and allowing for a misrepresentation of who is the actual representation of the people in the government, as we are engaged in an effort to intentionally undermine the government so as to slander the people. That's not acceptable. I'm not standing down myself, but I accept the resignation of my Attorney General. I also believe it reveals a very significant flaw in the refusal of the other branches of government and the others that purport to be representing the government and the people through the government in their positions, that I have to accept her resignation through no fault of her own.